propaganda in the United States is so good and it's so total. It's really the example of what he talks about, the total propaganda, a totally propagandized society. Propaganda becomes even more important when you have on paper a democratic system, and you absolutely must sideline and marginalize the population. You have to have some way to do that. So propaganda is even more urgent and important in a country like the United States and the Western countries in general, so-called Western democracies. But I think in America particularly, just because of they have a very they're in a very difficult situation ideologically, because it's a country that was founded on revolution and rebellion, and we were taught that in schools. We were taught to admire that. We were taught to be anti-empire. And so that's something that's deeply ingrained, at least in my generation and the previous generations to mine. I don't know what they've been teaching in schools lately, but when I was growing up, we were taught the American Revolution and anti-empire and all of that. So when the country itself becomes an empire, becomes an imperial power, and becomes, we were taught all of the stuff about democracy and the public and popular will and of, for, and by the people and so forth. So this becomes incredibly difficult to manage when you don't want actually a society like that, and you want the population to be completely marginalized and sidelined, and you're in a position where you can't really do that by force. So you have to do it by psychological force. You have to do it through propaganda. So in a country like in the United States, propaganda is urgently important, and it has to be total. It has to be complete, and it has to be relentless. It has to be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all the time. You can tie this back again to the situation in Palestine. Initially, the propaganda in the United States by people like Golda Meir and so on, and the early Zionists was it's a what do they say, a land without a people for a people without a land. Well, that sounds great to Americans. That resonates with our history, as what we told ourselves about our history. That the Jews are just like us. They're just the Zionists are just like what we were. They're going in and settling this territory that is just dormant, and there's nobody really there. And they're settling it, and they're these pioneers and so on. It evoked all of the things from our own history, even though our own history was all lies. That's what we were taught growing up, so it resonated with us. You can't say that now without being laughed at, because everyone knows now the real history, to one extent or another. And I think that the number of people who don't know that history are fewer and fewer, inshallah. But I saw someone actually saying that just on an interview just the other day, and I was shocked that you're so bad at your propaganda that you're saying things that absolutely no one will believe. It's not 1950. People have information now. But it just shows how the problem, again, when the propaganda is so completely opposed to the reality, that you can make it work temporarily if you get it to activate the pre-programmed interpretation of reality that people have, and make it align with that pre-programmed interpretation of reality. But when it becomes apparent that what you're saying is actually completely not aligned with the reality, then you have a problem. And I think that the Zionist project and support for Zionism in America, they should have, as I said in one of the videos, or a couple of the videos, I think they should have seen this coming. When Americans themselves started to recognize the truth of their own history, the history of their own country, and started to feel the guilt of the history of their own country, well, that made Zionism itself untenable for the population, and they should have seen this coming. That like especially just in 2020 with the George Floyd protests and the general rejection of colonialism and imperialism and slavery and the racist history of the United States. When you started to see that that sentiment spreading among the young people, the Zionists should have realized that their days were numbered.